Good morning and welcome to the latest episode of First Word in Sport. We're recording this on Monday morning. How are you this morning, James? I think we haven't talked about VAR for a little while and refereeing. It feels like we've had a weekend full of contentious decisions.
All good, Luke. Yeah, we haven't talked about it for a couple of weeks, have we? And then they just decided this weekend we're going to make our lives a lot easier or a lot harder, whichever way you want to be, regarding refereeing decisions. Yeah, some odd decisions and some interesting decisions that we'll talk about. But yeah, VAR's back in the headlines again. I did see that the Championship in midweek last week decided they're not going to bring in VAR. They didn't want to keep it football before VAR. So yeah, but it's here to stay. So we might as well talk about it.
Okay, so we had a big weekend of Premier League and FA Cup action. Let's go back to Friday evening. One of the stranger results we'll see all season. Bit of humble pie on my behalf because I thought Sunderland were going to be very competitive in that particular game. But I think it shows you the vagaries of football. So they've ended up winning 5-0 Forest. And Forest ended up having this bizarre little run where I think it was something like they scored 9 goals from 10 or 11 shots on target, and between this game and the Burnley game. And it's pretty simple in football. If every time you have a shot you're scoring goals, it's pretty easy to look pretty good. It's when you then go 50 shots without scoring, or only score once or twice, that the variance comes back to haunt you a little bit. But all said and done, incredible win for Forest. As I say, it does help if 2 minutes in you get a deflected own goal like they got, and then there's a really, really poor defensive mistake for that second goal. You could see Forest just grow into that game, and it was pretty much over at that point. Massive, massive win for Forest, although with both West Ham and Tottenham winning, they're not safe yet, James.
No, some more humble pie at this end as well, saying it's going to be a boring nil-nil draw. When I think it's the only second time this season 5-0 victory. I think the last one was Arsenal Leeds, wasn't it, early on in the season? Yeah, a little change from Pereira, didn't they? They played two up front, Wood and Igor. So Wood looks like he's back and he scores. Great to see him scoring again. So yeah, huge result. But yeah, I think, yeah, as you said, to score 6 shots and 5 goals, thanks very much. Improved the goal difference in the last couple of weeks. I think plus 8 goals or something. So yeah, massive result for them. Sunderland almost looked like they were on the beach kind of thing. And there's only one thing on that. The non-goal that was given against Sells, the foul against Sells. I know there's been from, can't remember the Sunderland player who had the foul.
Mukiele, so Ballard had goal disallowed for fouls by Mukiele. I think it was a good decision.
Yeah, it was a good decision by the referee for a change. He defouled him, and he would have punched the ball clear, in my view, if he hadn't got taken out. Now, it was accidental, I think, but still, you've got to give that as a foul, and he didn't mean to go and take the keeper out. He did, and it was a foul, and referee got it right.
So it's interesting you mentioned the word accidental there, because there are a couple of incidents. There's one in particular I have in my mind that we'll talk about later. But accidental doesn't mean it's not a foul. Just because someone isn't intending to do something doesn't mean that the player isn't taken out. It just means that, any punishment like yellow and red cards should probably be, slightly more conservative in terms of if there is anything worthy of that.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the Everton game and the VAR, the reason why they didn't give a penalty for it, but there you go.
So, yeah, as I said, can't really, that was just an enormous win for Forest. It's going to be interesting to see how they get on in the Europa League this week against Villa, semi-finals on Thursday evening. Let's move on to talking of Villa. They obviously lost 1-0 to Fulham on Saturday. I had the misfortune or fortune of being there. It's always interesting to watch teams up live. One thing I would say just quickly is Andrada being out for Villa is a massive loss in that central midfield areas. One biggest takeaway out of this, and I've talked about this before, football fans are absolute morons. And I'm specifically talking about Villa fans here. The reaction across social media and forums to that Villa loss has to be seen to be believed. The number of people talking about, oh, Villa had a big game and they choked again and the mentality's not there and all this sort of stuff. It's like, it was a game where there was very little between the two teams. Fulham have taken a chance. Villa haven't taken their chances. And they lose. There's not much, that's football. It's not that exciting. There's nothing to get upset about or, it was just one of those things. But the reaction from the fans, I think it may be just a sign of society in general in terms of instant gratification. But this is a Villa team who are still top 5, Europa League semi-finals, and they've got to play teams who are 17th and 18th or something. 18th and 19th in terms of out of their 4 remaining fixtures. The Champions League places are firmly in their grasp, and the fans are, honestly, you would think they were devastated. I just James, what am I seeing wrong here?
By margins, isn't it? If you think that Rodgers takes his chance and instead of putting it wide, he puts it in the bottom corner, and then a couple of minutes later, Watkins, great piece of skill, up against the centre-back and puts it half an inch wide as well, the other side of the post. If either of them go in, Villa are laughing kind of thing. They're 1-0 up, and then Sessegnon goes out of the end, and Conte can't get his feet in order, goes between his legs, and it's 1-0 and fine margins at this level. And Villa didn't play too badly. In fact, I thought they played quite well in the first half, Villa. Okay, they didn't really do, but they those 2 massive chances, and if they take one of them, the game changes. And
I think what you saw it was Villa were quite passive, but that's an Emery thing where they were quite happy just to pass the ball around the back and let Fulham come onto them. And Fulham actually pressed quite well at times, but what you saw was Villa was so dangerous on the break, and they were creating some really good situations. The final balls weren't quite right, but the opportunity was there on numerous occasions to put themselves in with unbelievable chances. And as you say, even the Abraham miss. So it's interesting having watched it back on TV now. You look at it and go, oh, that wasn't that easy a chance. I absolutely assure you, having been stood behind that goal or sat behind that goal, that was not that difficult a chance. It was literally a case of side-footing it into either corner, and the keeper isn't saving it. It was just a really, really bad miss. And I just say football is all about taking chances. I do think people overthink football at times in terms of results and the narratives they build around results. And I think the other thing is Villa did have an eye to Thursday night. You could see that with the substitutions that were made. Taking the likes of McGinn off and stuff after 70 minutes. I don't blame Emery, honestly. He deserves some grace, and he just doesn't seem to be getting that from the Villa fans. So one incident that obviously was talked about was the goal that was disallowed for Fulham from the set piece or corner, where Martinez was judged to have been fouled. I think having seen this, I think what's really interesting, so I was talking to you and John about this yesterday, and for me, I think it's one of the more obvious fouls on a goalkeeper you'll ever see. The ball is in the air, the attacking player is literally holding Martinez, not letting him move, and it's literally just pinning him there, and it isn't letting him move. Obviously, by the time the ball gets to where Martinez is, he suddenly lets go, and but he has to be able to move to the ball without, that attacking player has no intention of doing anything but blocking Martinez and is literally holding him. And what I find incredible is when you saw the clip online, is you then read the comments below and the number of people saying, oh, that's harsh, or there should have been a goal, and all these sorts of things. And you're looking at it and going, what has football become if that's not a foul on the goalkeeper? I just don't get it. Has our expectations been lowered so far that that's no longer a foul on the keeper?
I think Michael Oliver kind of guessed as well. Where he was watching the play, he's kind of guessed a bit. It is a foul on Martinez. I can understand why people are saying a little bit soft, but he does interfere in Martinez, and he does stop Martinez either saving it or coming to collect the cross anyway. So it is a foul. But I think what people are saying, and what people may be thinking, is that the amount of times that goes on in penalty areas at corners or free kicks from not the goalkeeper or on the goalkeeper is just allowed to happen, like the grappling, or because both players are doing it. But this is on a goalkeeper, so it's almost like you shouldn't be touching the goalkeeper at all. As soon as you touch the goalkeeper, it should just be a foul instantly, kind of thing. The only reason you're touching a goalkeeper, by the way, is to stop him or her saving the ball or coming for a cross. So you're fouling them, essentially. It's almost black and white in my view.
And I think that is the point. Is, if you're holding the goalkeeper like that, or you're backing into the goalkeeper when the ball's not there, it's not a footballing play per se. You're literally there trying to foul or impede the goalkeeper. And we just have this unfortunate situation where there's been so many poor decisions made in the last 18 months with regard to fouls on goalkeepers that this is almost viewed as, normal. And it's not helped by the commentators, by the way, saying, that's a bit harsh. No, absolute nonsense. You have to give the goalkeeper a fair chance to actually get the ball. And yes, it is a physical game, but part of being a physical game isn't preventing a goalkeeper from getting to the ball. Anyway, I thought it was an interesting one, and just to see, where people view these things these days, given what's gone on the rest of the season. One thing I would say, Michael Oliver, he really doesn't have great control of games, by the way. And there's some quite interesting things in that Villa game that you won't see on TV. But even like the time wasting, so you could see it very, very early on in that game, in the second half, from Bassi and Leno. And, he didn't book, I don't think he booked either of them for time wasting, but they would just push it. And you could see him get a little bit exasperated, but he did nothing about it time and time again. And I don't know. I think there were 4 minutes of added time at the end, which includes a VAR check as well, for that Martinez goal. So, yeah, I don't know. It feels like the timekeeping, as usual, was not impressive, shall we say, given the amount of time wasted. But it was always all good fun despite the result.
Put a shot clock in and take the time away, take the actual timekeeping away from the referee. Just allow someone on the touchline to do it. They've got other things to worry about than rather than keeping time right. They make it up as they go along. It's absolute nonsense. It really is. It winds you up. Like, you have 8 seconds for a goalkeeper, and they count it down. You constantly see goalkeepers, from the time they catch it or stop it, it's more than 8 seconds a lot of the time. And then the goal kicks one really annoys me. Really does annoy me. It goes out one side, and you can stroll over. You can take it up to a minute to take a goal kick. Just wasting time, completely wasting time.
Well, I think one of the problems is people forget it is meant to be an entertainment sport, and I know it's cutthroat and stuff, but I find it weird when you see Fulham wasting time from minute 47, 48 in a game like that. But each to their own. So we come on to the fun and games of Saturday afternoon, and there were some fun and games. Let's just touch quickly on the Liverpool game against Palace. Obviously, 3-1 win for Liverpool. I don't sense... You're about to tell me better than I can, but it seemed to me from afar that Liverpool didn't play great again, and were probably somewhat fortunate to win that game.
Yeah, very fortunate by looking up the highlights and reading about it. I think Isak, before he scored, I think he had 4 touches or something ridiculous like this. He just has a massive issue, doesn't he? He can't get the best out of his players. He doesn't know how to build attacks. That they won. They had an awful lot of chances, Crystal Palace. Adam Waterman was brilliant in the game. He is a really good footballer. And the second point, obviously Salah went down injured. Hopefully that's not his last game for hamstring injury. He got booked for diving, was a complete dive. Brennan Johnson got the ball.
He doesn't dive though, James. James, you tell me all the time, he doesn't dive. He never dives. He's always fouled.
I don't understand why he wasn't booked, by the way, for that. Anyway, Brennan Johnson, £35 million. Great British pounds for Brennan Johnson in January. He's got to go down as one of the worst buys going, although Newcastle are taking that prize this season for some of their buys they've bought. Yeah, Liverpool won. Vert scored a good goal at the end, but yeah, I mean, Liverpool almost guaranteed fifth now. I think they're 8 points clear of sixth with only 4 games to go. They've got Brentford at home, they play United, and they play Villa away, and they've got Chelsea at home in a couple of weeks as well. So yeah, getting to the end of the season, write the season off for Liverpool, but yeah, still need a change in manager, head coach.
I think even in your game, so we talk about fine margins. So like Isak's goal, it came from a shot that wasn't going on target, and he's then mishit it as well. It was like, I don't know, it was just a little bit fortuitous. And then Robertson, brilliant finish, literally right in the corner. And so many times you'll see players miss that, and come back to it all the time, taking your chances. It really does make a difference.
Yeah, and one thing from that game actually was Freddie Woodman, the third choice goalkeeper. He went down with just before obviously Munoz scored. So normally I have no problems with the goal essentially because it's play on until the referee blows his whistle, and Liverpool players Canate and Van Dijk are at fault for not playing on. But normally is when a goalkeeper especially goes down, they automatically stop the play, regardless of what head injury, whatever it is. The referees, regardless, just stop the play. And the players normally do as well, but Munoz didn't. Stuck it in the top corner, and 2-1. Yeah, it was just another odd decision from the referee that you'll see it next week, and they'll blow the whistle because the keeper's gone down injured.
I honestly, I don't mind that.
Neither do I. I'm just saying.
It wasn't a head injury. It wasn't a foul on Woodman in any shape or form. I'm
just highlighting the point that when there is normally the keeper goes down, the referee automatically stops it.
But on what grounds? What rules are they stopping the game with?
No idea. I'm just saying that they 99.9% of the time they do stop the play, and you'll see next weekend probably the keeper goes down, they'll stop the play, and you'll be like, well.
But one of the problems is that we've seen it this weekend. The amount of play acting and cheating is off the charts at the moment. I almost struggle to remember a time where there's ever been more than what there is at the moment. It's honestly embarrassing, and I don't know. Was there a single player booked this weekend for simulation or cheating? Probably not. If Salah doesn't get booked for what he did, you're just encouraging it. But
absolutely, yeah.
So on to the more interesting games. So there was a beautiful sort of window on Saturday afternoon during these two games. So West Ham Everton and Wolves Spurs. Obviously West Ham and Spurs are both in contention for that final relegation spot. Both hugely important games for them. And at one stage West Ham were leading 1-0 with Spurs drawing 0-0. It would have been a huge blow for Spurs' chances staying up. Within the space of a couple of minutes, you had Everton equalising through Dewsbury Hall, and you had Palhinha scoring for Spurs. And so the balance just shifted completely the other way, massively into Spurs' favour, before Callum Wilson got his late winner for West Ham, just to restore order a little bit. But I think we're going to see this a lot over the next 4 games. These huge swings between these two teams. And it was, as not being a fan of either team, it was quite fun.
It was indeed. I was just checking the fixtures this coming week. Are they playing at the same time this weekend? And no, they're not, obviously, because Brentford, West Ham, Saturday afternoon, and Aston Villa, Tottenham on a Sunday night. Yeah. Quickly on the West Ham Everton game. That's a massive goal from Callum Wilson. The guy who was he was out of contract, wasn't it? They let him go. And almost tried to go in January as well, and he's come back and he put it away. I did have to laugh about the VAR tweet from the Premier League match officials' Twitter handle during the game, just before Dewsbury Hall scored the goal, their equaliser. So if you've not seen it, Matheus Fernandes is grappling the Everton player, and he handles the ball clearly, right? It's just a straight red card. It is not red card, sorry, straight penalty in my view. And then they say, goes to VAR, and VAR come back with the most ridiculous notice or whatever they said. Accidentally handled the ball whilst grappling with the opponent. Penalty not awarded. I mean, can we just break that down? So he accidentally handles the ball. Where's accidentally in the rulebook? Point 1. And point 2, grappling the opponent. So, grappling's that fouling in your view? It is in my view. It's almost like a double penalty. I mean, thankfully Everton went up the other end 2 minutes later and scored. But that's just a penalty in everyone's view. Like, he handled the ball and he's probably fouling the player as well. Like, and not to be awarded that. It's just like, it's almost like, because the referee hasn't given it, and it's that late in the game, VAR just doesn't want to get involved in it, and they just like, oh, we'll hope it just goes away kind of thing, and we'll just say, oh, make so much rubbish excuse. Yeah, I mean, shocker. Absolute shocker.
I mean, there were a few contentious decisions in that game. So even the Souček goal, I mean, we talked about contact on Martinez earlier. There was contact on Pickford. A little bit different to the Martinez one in that the player's not clearly holding the goalkeeper, but what the attacking player is doing is he's sort of shoving his bum into the keeper, and he does, there is a pretty good case that he is obstructing Pickford. And again, this is what I come back to in terms of these decisions, is he's not trying to make a play at the ball. He has no intention of playing the ball. His only aim there is to try and disrupt the goalkeeper. And that's, I think, for me, a really important differentiator, is if a player's trying to play the ball and he has contact with the keeper, that seems, that's just a normal footballing move. I can live with, I can live with that. The goalkeepers, let's say, I always remember one with Hermansen last season when he was at Leicester, and it got ruled out. The ball went high, Hermansen came for it, minimal contact on him, it was given as a foul, obviously the goal disallowed, but it was a competitive ball, and when a player's legitimately challenging for the ball, I have a lot more sympathy for the attacking players. It's these snide little intentional trying to put the goalkeeper off without playing the ball that I really dislike, because I just don't think they're adding anything to the game.
I thought it was a foul, yeah, on Pickford. Well, he was very lucky just before the corner and the goal was scored anyway. He comes out and he takes everyone out, leaves his boot high. Yeah, he gets the ball and cleans out the player, but
I think it was Castellanos. I've seen angles now, and I don't know if the angle was available at the time, but there's an angle from behind the goal where he literally studs up, he catches him, not on the foot, on the ankle, sort of shin. I don't see how it's not a penalty, but we touched earlier about accidental or not. Is Pickford has a reputation for coming out in a reckless manner. Just ask Virgil. You can't. There's a limit to how reckless you can be in terms of coming out for a ball. I don't have that much sympathy for him with the style that he does it with.
It's like goalkeepers get away with that because they're not outfield players. He's got history on it. Talking of the goal though, so he's only 6 foot and he's just not good enough to come out and clear everyone out, and that's why they concede the goal. What Everton doing allowing 6 or 7 players from the opposition in your 6-yard box when you've got a small goalkeeper? I just don't understand why they allow that many players as a defending side. Just go and move them out of the way, or go and stick 3 up front kind of thing that Chelsea tried earlier in the season.
But
Villa tried.
James, it doesn't work when you have a goalkeeper who isn't able to command their 6-yard box. So it's fine if it was like a Martinez at Villa or someone like that who is willing to come out and try and claim stuff, because they then have the room to do it and they're not impeded in the same way to do it. The problem with Pickford is he's not able to do that. He never has done that. He's always been weak on crosses. It's he does a lot of very good things, but he's very weak on crosses, and he's not able to command his box. So
2 goals in the last 2 weeks, hasn't it? The Virgil winner and that goal at the weekend where he just can't come out. He's rooted to the goal line. He's not going to stop anything. He only needs to take a small flick or whatever like that, and he can't react to it if it's too close to him. Too close to the goal, yeah.
I do think Pickford is he's an interesting player, because I think he's very polarising in that, Everton fans are very, very precious about Pickford. And I understand why, because he has done some amazing things for that football club. But the blind spot they have with regard to some of his weaknesses, particularly on things like crosses, is incredible. They have conceded quite a few goals in recent weeks from his inability to collect crosses or be dominant. And actually, when you see those goals being scored from it, yes, they don't flag up as errors and things like that per se, but other goalkeepers, are much better in that area.
He reminds me of Shay Given back in the day, Newcastle Irish goalkeeper. Made saves that look TV camera angle saves, but couldn't command his area at all because he just was only 6 foot, and he just wasn't good enough to be a top class goalkeeper. And there's a reason why Pickford's at Everton. As you say, he's done a great job there, but there's a reason why no European club has come in for him or a Champions League club. He's just not big enough. You need to be 6'3", 6'4" to be a top class goalkeeper these days. A massive result for West Ham, though. Huge result for them.
What amazes me is when you look down the bottom, when you see just how many points that West Ham, Forest, Leeds have all got in the last 5 or 6 games, and you just think how easily this sort of relegation race could have been so different if only one of those teams had sputtered a little bit. But they keep on winning, keep on grinding out results. I mean, that's a really big win against Everton. Everton are not an easy team to play against, and just gives them a chance. I said on Friday, if West Ham can come out of this weekend with the same points total as advantage they have over Tottenham, they're going to be in good shape. And I really honestly think that's a difficult fixture to get out of the way. And I think Tottenham had relatively their easiest fixture left on paper. So let's touch on that Tottenham game. A couple of observations with it. One is Tottenham were dreadful for most of that game, and again, the Palhinha goal. I'm pretty sure it was a shot that was going wide that he sort of tucked in. There's a pretty large degree of fortune with regards to that goal. They were really, really poor again, and then obviously the other point would be about obviously Simons and more injuries for Tottenham. Solanke went off injured. We don't know where that one's at. Simons has been confirmed as an ACL, so unlikely to see him again this calendar year probably. And just another blow when Tottenham lose some of their more creative players once again, when they're in a situation where they need to be winning games.
Their injury this season has been absolutely ridiculous. I can't remember a team that's lost that many first team players through injury. I mean, just look at the players now. Kulusevski's not played all season. Kudos they bought for 55 million quid from West Ham. He's hardly played at all. I know he played early in the season, but he's been out since January now, if not before. Reoccurrence, so he's missing the rest of the season. Now Solanke's injured. Richarlison's got injury problems. Simons did a massive blow. He was their most creative player, kind of thing. And it's just like
Madison's
all the time.
Been out all season.
Yeah, like Romero's obviously now as well. Vicario's still not back. I know he's not, whatever, but he's still their first choice goalkeeper, kind of thing. They had to win that game, and yeah, they were bang average, but getting over the line, just getting a goal, and they finally won a game in the Premier League. It took them until April the 25th. For them to win a game in the Premier League in 2026. So congratulations Tottenham, you're still in the relegation fight. But yeah, they had to win. If they didn't win, I think they were almost down. The confidence levels would have been horrific if, Wolves have been relegated or relegated before Saturday. And yeah, they haven't scored in the last 3 Wolves, have they either? So they've been pretty poor kind of thing. But yeah, when it rained, it absolutely pours for Tottenham on the injury front.
And I do think it's underrated, the whole injury stuff. I really do. I've talked about it with you and John about even like Villa and, even from a Villa perspective, this weekend, Onana wasn't playing. Massively important player. That's one single player that makes a big difference to a lineup. Even look
The
at
thing with Tottenham is they can't get a rhythm going because they're changing 2 or 3 players every week because they ain't injuries kind of thing. Players don't get in the rhythm with other players. And one special mention for Wolverhampton Wanderers fans abusing Xavi Simons on a stretcher behind a goal after he went off injured. Have a word with yourself. What do you think you're doing, injuring a young kid who's done his ACL? Now, you might not have known he's done his ACL at the time, but he looked a pretty bad injury. He's on a stretcher and you're abusing him? What gives you the right to abuse anyone on a football field like that? You wouldn't do it in the street because you'd probably get knocked out anyway. So why can't you just allow to do it? Have a word with yourself, lads. You don't need to abuse a player because he's injured. It's just, I thought that was ridiculous. Absolute nonsense.
it looked pretty ugly on social media, didn't it? I mean, it wasn't a good look.
No, and it's just pathetic. And Wolves not come out and condemn the abuse. I think that's pretty poor as well from the club as well. And they know exactly who did it. They can find out CCTV and things like that anyway. So they wanted to, but yeah, poor.
But
Get in the Championship.
But all said and done, what it means is that West Ham keep their 2-point gap over Spurs. So Spurs away at Villa next Sunday evening. A slightly odd kick-off time because of Villa's Europa League matches against Forest. And as you say, West Ham are playing away at Brentford on Saturday afternoon. So 2 tough games for the 2 teams there.
On that point, so it's bank holiday weekend here in the UK next weekend. Why are Aston Villa playing Tottenham at 7 o'clock on a Sunday night? There's no excuse. Why is that not at 2 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon? I just don't get that. Why they suddenly change it to Sunday night just because Villa are playing Forest and then Forest are playing Monday afternoon. It's a bank holiday at 3 o'clock against Chelsea. It just seems completely odd.
It's certainly. I don't think it's that fair on Forest. I'm not going to lie.
No, exactly. I just don't understand. I really do believe that these fixtures. I hope the last 3 games. Well, they're not. They've already the last 2. Well, the last game obviously at 4 o'clock on a Sunday every game, but the penultimate round of fixtures, Man City and Arsenal have to play at the same time. They can't not play at different times. It gives other teams a huge advantage, and the same with Tottenham and West Ham have to play at the same time as well. I know for fans wanting to watch both sets of games, but it gives a huge advantage if you know the result of the other game. Absolutely massive.
But those fixtures picked. It's all about TV. And by the way, we talked about the Southampton clash with Arsenal. So Arsenal Newcastle against Man City Southampton. They cannot schedule a massive Premier League game at the same time as the FA Cup semi-final and not expect there to be a massive loss of interest in that FA Cup semi-final. I know a few people wanting, the romance of the FA Cup and the whole fairy tale and all this sort of stuff, but most of the people who are watching Premier League football week in, week out will want to be watching that Arsenal Newcastle game.
Yeah, we can talk about Arsenal Newcastle game, but great goal by Eze, really good goal, and that's just a fantastic. No keeper saving that. It's interesting that we talked about it briefly. Pope was back in goal for Newcastle, but Havertz going off injured is a big blow for Arsenal because Gyökeres looks absolutely what he is, just not good enough for Arsenal Football Club at all.
Okay, so let's just go back a little bit. So in terms of the Arsenal game, I think there's a few interesting things just to sort of take out of it. One was the short corner routine. It's been touched on a few times, but that was the 3rd time they took that in quick succession. And obviously, as they stuck one in the top corner, brilliant finish. But it was interesting just that, Arsenal were willing to mix things up and sort of think out the box a little bit in terms of what they were doing at set pieces. And for that, I think that they have to be applauded. But what I would say, for huge parts of that game, Arsenal were not good again. I know they've scored a worldie, but they really didn't offer much going forward. And yes, when you've got a defence as good as they have, sometimes you don't need to. But when you see chances like the one Osula missed late. Not Osler. Wisser missed late on. That volley, that was not a difficult chance, and it's a very dangerous game to be that passive. That Newcastle team was there for the taking. It wasn't a good Newcastle lineup, and they let them get away with absolute murder. I thought Arsenal did. They were so passive again, and I think this is the problem people have with Arteta, is you see them bring the passion to that Manchester City game, and I understand it is hard to get up for each and every game, week in, week out. But, you've got potentially, 6-7 games left of the season? These players have to be bringing it consistently from here on in, every game. And they dodged a bullet in the end, I thought, Arsenal.
Yeah, they got away with it, didn't they? Almost talk about whole pod on Newcastle transfers, couldn't we? On the summer, like who they bought and the panic who they're buying. Can I interest you quickly on Newcastle before I forget? Them getting relegated?
It's funny because I did see a few Newcastle sort of comments on social media where a couple of people were suddenly getting a little bit nervous. I think it would take such an unlikely run out from Tottenham or West Ham to bring them back into it. But it shows you where this Newcastle team is at. Honestly, they strike me as, if they lose Bruno, Tonali, Hall, those sorts of players this summer, and don't replace them well, they're not far away from suddenly being a mid to lower table team. There's just so little there, honestly.
Well, they're going to make a decision about Eddie Howe in the summer, aren't they? But I wouldn't have any confidence in them getting the appointment who they want anyway. I don't know who they want. There hasn't been any room. There's obviously rumours about Howe's, whatever like that. But as you say, they lose 2 or 3 players, which I think they're going to have to sell anyway for squad cost ratio issues anyway. And a couple of their players want to play Champions League football coming, not to the end of their careers, but the end of their, 20, like to Gordon as well kind of thing. So they've got a huge summer ahead, Newcastle. They probably only need a point from the next 4 fixtures to get to 43. But they play Brighton this weekend. Then they've got to play, who else they got? Fulham away last game of the season. We might need to go their point. They've also got West Ham at home. Now, if they lose at home to West Ham and they're being beaten by Brighton, they're in real trouble so next game, they're away at Forest as well. So, they've played 2 of the teams down at the bottom as well. I don't think they will go down, but at 50 to 1 or 60 to 1, whatever they are, it's I've seen stranger things happen, kind of thing. And it would take Tottenham obviously to win 3 games, or no, 4 games wouldn't have to win. So yeah, but big summer for Newcastle ahead. Yeah, Arsenal just got over the line, didn't they? And that's all they need to do now.
One thing that was interesting, I was talking to an Arsenal fan who was there yesterday, and he said that really good atmosphere for large parts of the game, but when Havertz went off and Gyökeres came on, he said there was just an audible around the ground, and that's not good. I don't know what point Jesus has to start if Havertz is out injured for any period of time, but Gyökeres, not good.
No, we've talked about that for a long time, haven't we? So yeah.
So that was the Premier League games on the weekend. It was obviously a weird weekend in that there was only a few on the Friday and Saturday. There is a game this evening between Manchester United and Brentford, which we can talk about a little bit later. So we obviously had the FA Cup semi-finals as well. So let's talk on Man City, Southampton. City eventually ran out 2-1 winners. They were given a scare by Southampton though, and Finn Azaz, who, interesting player actually, because he was at Villa. I always remember that they signed him from West Brom. He never really featured at Villa. He kept going out on loan, including places like Borough before he moved to Southampton. He has a history of scoring quite a few goals actually, and a few worldies in there. unbelievable goal he scored, 79th minute, and it looked like Southampton might go and, ruin the Manchester City day. City got back into it with a deflected goal from Doku. Honestly, these margins are so fine in this game. I keep saying it, but there's so much luck involved there from a City perspective. I mean, they were unlucky, obviously, to be losing at that point. They were dominant throughout the game, really. And then Gonzalez has scored one of the better goals I can remember in a long time in terms of how hard he's hit that ball. He's hit that like an absolute rocket. And City sort of just about got over the line.
I wasn't really surprised when I saw the team use, and you kind of knew that City would make a load of changes, kind of thing. 'Cause they've had a couple of high pressurised games, obviously. I mean, every game's high pressurised, but they made a load of changes, and not really surprised when they can't get the rhythm, because a lot of these players haven't played a lot of football together as well in games rather than in training, but they're not playing week in, week out. He's found a system and players. Guardiola, he's like using essentially the same team all the time. So bringing in Reinders and Foden and Nico Gonzalez, yeah, they won, didn't they? 2-1, and their treble's still on, isn't it? So from a season everyone's going and they might not be winning anything, it could win the treble. So yeah, it's a heck of a good hit from Nico. I don't rate him. In £50 million, I think he's bang average, really, to be honest with you. Panicked by last January when Rodri got injured and they went, we need someone in. We talked about it on Friday with John, didn't we? Him and Reinders for 100 million plus. It's kind of just bad business, but they got those. Southampton were impressive again. It shows that how much confidence they've got. I know their first game beaten in 18 and 19, but they didn't obviously play, and they've got their game in hand tomorrow night against Ipswich. So that is a massive game in Championship for them. They've still got chances to get the automatic second behind Coventry. So yeah, you kind of want to see Southampton back in the Premier League. I probably think they're a Premier League club. They've got the infrastructure down there, so it would. It's a good performance. City got through, didn't they? So into another final. I think it's 4 consecutive FA Cups finals, isn't it, for City?
One thing that was talked about was how many empty seats there were from a City perspective. I mean, we touched on this on Friday. I've got a lot of sympathy for the fans, to be honest. You didn't have so much, but I think that's something we won't necessarily agree on. The other semi-final was Chelsea-Leeds yesterday. It was always going to be interesting to see which Chelsea turned up, and I think unbelievably telling on the players, if I'm honest. In terms of, you see the effort levels yesterday compared to the effort levels in that Brighton game. I think there's a few of those Chelsea players who should be pretty ashamed by the effort levels they've put in recent weeks.
Yeah, they got Rosenior sacked at Brighton, didn't they? They just didn't bother even attempting, didn't hide it, the fact that they just wanted him gone. Again, fine margins. You think in the Robert Sanchez great save from Aronson in the first half when he's clean through. Guy does nothing wrong. It's just a really good save from Sanchez. And then they gave the ball away. Neto crossed it for Enzo Fernandez, who's just not a nice individual, I don't think. He just looks a complete wrong, and I just can't deal with him. He's played in his best position, which is the 10, which we talked about here, didn't we? That's where Starboy Palmer wants to play.
His movement for that goal, by the way, was unbelievable.
Brilliant. Yeah, 6 away, 1-0. And then Leeds made a couple of changes at half-time, and they were the better team in the second half, and then Sanchez makes another really good save. Calvert-Lewin obviously then heads it straight down Sanchez's throat. But I thought Leeds were a little bit unlucky kind of thing, and they Chelsea really didn't do much in the second half at all. It's kind of like their legs are gone or they weren't fit or whatever it was. But yeah,
I mean, one of my big takeaways from this game was how unlikable this group of Chelsea players are. And, I can't remember seeing many teams where they have more unlikable players, whether that be your Enzo Fernandez, Garnachos, Delaps. I mean, you could keep going on and on throughout that team. Cucurella. It's the amount of cheating and play acting. Neto, just was absolutely absurd throughout the game. And I watch a game like that, and I just feel sorry for the refs because it's just constant cheating, feigning injuries, making injuries look a lot worse than they were, and it just, yes, there's gamesmanship and things like that, but if is that honestly what you want football to become? I mean, it was just such a sad indictment on football, I think.
Garnacho was a classic one in a second. Was it the second half?
It was the second
first half.
No, it was the second half. I know which bit you're talking about, when he was down injured, and then he was rolling around as if he was, in pieces. And then the attack carried on, and suddenly he popped up out of nowhere to try and get on the end of it. But that's what I mean, right? There's no consequences to these players behaving like this, and I think what I did see as well. I think one of my absolute pet hates in the Premier League at the moment is the number of fouls given in favour of defenders. At the moment, they're merely brushed and they go down, but because of where they are on the pitch, they get given as fouls all the time. It's ridiculous, the number of free kicks given in favour of defenders. I don't think yesterday was a great advert for football, I would say.
And then we had the nonsense again of the keeper, Robert Sanchez, going down, claiming he'd been injured, being told to go down by the Chelsea coaching staff. And fair play to Leeds, they got stuck into Chelsea management and the players, led by Andrada, proper leadership there, and said, "What are you doing?" It's just, but the referees, they're kind of stuck in a rock and a hard place because they've been told obviously that you have to stop the player if the keeper goes down. So they stopped the player. So that's why my argument about Freddie Woodman the other day, or earlier, sorry, was he went down on Saturday and they didn't stop the play. So Sanchez gets told to go down, and then they can walk over. So that law needs stamping out straight away, and that's easily done. That could be done this morning. Easily done. If the keeper goes down, you're not allowed to go anywhere near you go and stand in the centre circle. All the outfield players all go and stand in the centre circle, so you can't go and have the tactics around the manager and things like that. That could be stamped out immediately. It will be, but again, it's just time wasting, it's play acting, it's just putting people off the sport. And then you see kids doing it as well. And it's all levels, by the way, this keeping thing. I see it all the time. It's just absolute nonsense. Needs stamping out, and the authorities have just let it go. And you talked about it for a long, long time. Once they allow one thing to happen, they just continue allowing it to happen. It's just not right.
Also make mention of, Casado, 3 minutes in, 2 minutes in, clear foul.
42 seconds in.
Whatever it was. But it was basically, should have been yellow card in the first, couple of minutes of that game. Not given. And he's, obviously got booked again later on. A massively important player, whether he gets booked or not in that situation. And the referees, this idea that it's too early in the game and all this sort of, if a player comes off the bench and does a foul within 60 seconds, he will get yellow carded. They don't mess around. They don't say to him, "Oh, you've only just come on the pitch, so we're going to give you a bit of grace, a period of grace." No, they'll book him straight away. But, if a yellow card tackle happens in that first minute or two, book the player. I mean, it's not difficult.
And then you get a commentator saying, it's good letting the game flow and all this business. It's just, yeah.
I mean, what annoyed me in that game as well, there was a situation where Enzo Fernandez was involved in a sort of challenge, and he was looking to go down. He was weak in the challenge. He didn't win the ball. The Leeds player still had the ball. Fernandez went and a deliberate foul. So, it was so obvious that he was looking to sort of gain revenge for what had just happened. Didn't get booked, and then literally 30 seconds later, Struijk gets booked for a foul where he's essentially pulled the player, but it was deliberate. But it was no more deliberate than the Fernandez one, okay? And they're going, one's been given as yellow card, one hasn't been given. And they're both deliberate, from the players in terms of fouling the opposition. And it's that sort of inconsistency that drives me mad watching football.
Yeah, it's just... it's almost like the referee went into that game and said, "I'm not going to book anyone for 70 minutes. Let the game flow. It's on TV. It's the only game that's on TV. Yeah, just not doing his job properly.
So anyway, we get to see a very, very exciting Manchester City versus Chelsea final. It's not that exciting, really, given how often these two teams have been there, as John highlighted on Friday's episode. Yeah, I mean, the problem is the FA Cup just isn't what it was. There's no getting away from it.
Yeah. Well, it used to be any game on TV, really, you could watch, so everyone used to watch it. But now there's games on, you can watch whatever game you want from around the world, can't you? So but they have devalued it completely, yeah.
So let's talk. One of the more interesting leagues this weekend was the Scottish Premier League. So massive weekend in terms of what happened there. So we had Celtic beating Falkirk 3-1. You had Rangers losing to Motherwell. They had been 2-0 down, got it back to 2-2 before a very late Motherwell winner. And then we had the derby, Hibs against Hearts in Edinburgh. And Hibs scored early, but then went down to 9 men. Hearts eventually found a winning goal very late on. I actually saw more of this game than I thought I might. Actually, it was quite interesting. It's not often you see teams go down to 9 men, seeing, how that looks.
9 men very early on as well, because red card early in the first half and then the back end. Was it back end of second half or first half?
It's about half time, yeah.
Yeah.
Give or take.
And that was the second booking. That was a naughty tackle as well. It's quite high on the guy's knee anyway. And then they scored 2 ridiculously lucky goals as well to get them over the line. And the scenes at the end, yeah, because the first goal was don't know how it's gone in really. It's an own goal. And then the second goal, if it wasn't deflected off to the defender, I think the keeper would have saved that as well. So yeah.
But the irony being, right, so that first goal literally came within 60 seconds of the Hearts player smashing one against the bar with what would have been a worldie. Yeah. And it was like, how do you sum up football better? A brilliant strike, keeper nowhere near it, thumps back off the bar, desperately unlucky. 60 seconds later, they equalise with, as you say, a goal must scramble, which ended up being very, very fortunate. It's like, welcome to football.
Yeah, and the big game next Monday, I think it's Monday, is Rangers go to Hearts. So Hearts are now 4 points clear of Rangers. So that is going to be a massive game on that Monday afternoon, I think it is.
But Hearts in pretty good shape, all said and done.
Yeah, they could win it for the first time. I think it's 41 years. It would be the first time non-Rangers or Celtic win it since Ferguson won it with Aberdeen, I think.
And I think it'd be the first time they've won it since 1960 or something like that. So it would be crazy if Tony Bloom and his Hearts team gets over the line there. Championship, James, the reality with the Championship is a lot of the interesting stuff happened, hasn't it? We know who's going down. There's just that second playoff place, second automatic place.
Yeah, obviously Coventry are champions, and Millwall had a bad result against Leicester on Friday night, and they got away with last-minute equaliser. So they drew 1-1. If they'd won that game, and the way the fixes are, they could have got the automatic promotion. They've still got chances, but yeah, it kind of feels like Southampton, if they beat Ipswich tomorrow night, will probably get promoted to second place. So it is interesting. It looks like Southampton, Ipswich, Millwall, and who is the other team in?
Is it not Wrexham?
It's Wrexham are 6 at the moment on goal difference from Hull, who have Wrexham's goal difference is +4 and Hull's goal difference is +3. So that's the Championship. And at the bottom, obviously, Oxford have gone down with Leicester and Sheffield Wednesday, who didn't win a game. So Sheffield Wednesday have played 45 games this season. They've won 1. It's the most remarkable thing I've seen. Won 1 game. Any guesses who they beat? And when?
Sheffield United.
No, they beat Portsmouth away. So they've not even on the 20th of September. They haven't won a home game all season. And they've got 1 win out of 45 games. It's one of them. poorest ever teams you'll see. I mean, it's an absolute.
Well, that must go down
shocker
as
for them.
like literally an all-time horrendous team across all the leagues. So it's one, we always talk about, your derbies and teams like that in the Premier League as to how bad they were. But, when you extrapolate it out across other divisions, there aren't many worse, as you say, than what the Sheffield Wednesday team's been. I know they have had a lot of stuff going on off the pitch.
Yeah, it's so it's just the last set of fixtures are this Saturday at 12:30, I think. So all the games kick off this Saturday before the playoffs start.
So just one quick point was, we touched on it before, was West Brom and their points deduction. So they got 2 points deducted for breaching financial fair play. I find this particularly unsatisfactory. I think that the Football League is very lucky that this didn't actually impact things, and that when they were able to sort of put the points deduction out there, that in reality it had no actual impact on what was going to happen, because you can't be deducting points from teams, around game 44 in the Championship. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's kind of made up, isn't it? They just kind of will take I don't know how they get to 2 points anyway. I haven't read the report, obviously, how they decided on 2 points.
Well, the 2 points is, so I think Leicester got 6 points, didn't they? And so Leicester were miles over. So Leicester's was a much more significant breach. And so if you think back to when Everton got their points deduction, and how big the breach is matters in terms of how many points you do get in terms of the deductions. But
weren't they about £1 million over or something?
Well, so I think this is where it's difficult. Is there was loads of contention as to, it is, in the grand scheme of things, it's a relatively low number. So I think you had Leicester more than 10 million over, let's say. I've got number 15 million in my mind for some reason. It could be more than that. So they were miles over. They made no effort to really be under it, whereas West Brom clearly have. And if the breach is less than 1 million, it's what we even doing here, deducting points for that.
Jobs for the boys, isn't it, really?
Any European football catch the eye, James?
No, quickly, just staying in England, the Rochdale York game Saturday.
Yes.
Absolute scenes, limbs everywhere, absolute chaos. So Rochdale obviously scored in the 95th minute.
So put some context on this, right? So Rochdale is for the one automatic promotion place. Rochdale had to win this game. York were 2 points ahead of them in the table. So Rochdale needed to win this game.
Yeah, brilliant cross by the old man, the 41-year-old. Unbelievable cross outside of the boot to the centre forward on the 6-yard area. Can't not score. Puts in 95th minute. This was of 8 minutes of injury time. Absolute scenes. Pitch invasion from the Rochdale home fans. Players going crazy, taking off shirts. We're going up. We're going up. York obviously players look devastated going into the playoffs, and then I think it was the last kick of the game, wasn't it?
The 113th minute or something. So obviously a lot more time was added on because of the pitch invasion.
And the ball, I didn't realise the referee had the ability to check on his watch if the ball went over the line in the conference. I thought it was just, because when you first look at it, you can't actually, it's not really an angle you can see if the ball's gone over the line. But obviously the referee gets a notification on his watch saying the ball has gone over the line. And York equalise. And then it's chaos again. Absolute chaos again. York fans were on the pitch, etc., etc. And it was just the stewards have got no chance of controlling the game. I think they actually didn't play on, and I think it was the last kick of the game. I think, wasn't it Josh Stones? I think it was the guy that scored. But yeah, so they've gone up after 1-1. So Rochdale in the playoffs was over, I think, got 106 points or something. It's quite remarkable. They got 106, York 108 or something like that. And Carlisle, managed by Mark Hughes, they got 95 points kind of thing. So it's tough for Rochdale to get back up again. I think now to get in the playoffs, to get into the not nationally into League Two for next season. But yeah, it's there's one coming out of that, isn't there? There's a video circulating online about I think it's a York player who's seems to have punched a fan on the pitch, kind of thing. And I've talked about it off this pod, that it's going to get a stage where there's going to be a player or a fan seriously injured with these pitch invasions, kind of thing. I know it's an emotional sport and things like this, but there is going to be a point where, even Oleg McBurney back in the day, he was brought up in front of court, kind of thing, for punching a fan, kind of thing. It's going to be a player or fan who's going to get seriously hurt if he's allowed to continue. And a quick way of doing it is just ban them for 6 games next season. Not the fans. Just close the stadium, and you have the stadium closed, because it's going to happen. It will happen. Today's society, we've seen it with the Xavi Simons thing on Saturday as well. So there's just morons, as you said earlier in the pod. Some football fans are, so can't help themselves. But yeah, absolute scenes.
I mean, amazing advert for non-league football and lower league football, and also non-VAR football, James.
Yeah, can you imagine if that was the... They probably found a reason not to give the goal. Yeah.
Obviously, John was, who's on the pod on Friday, big Tottenham fan, but he was saying even when Tottenham scored the winner against Wolves, he couldn't celebrate because when he saw it, he thought it was going to be ruled out for offside. And you do get this situation all the time at the moment with goals with VAR. Is you're just never sure whether it's going to stand or not, and it does take something, definitely take something away from the game, in terms of that just sheer enjoyment you get when your team scores, not knowing whether it's going to get overturned or not.
Yeah, it takes the enjoyment out of it. Other news in PSG obviously won on Friday night, or not Friday night, on Saturday, I think, in France, so they're top there. Just a couple of things. Back to goalkeepers. Ederson, the Man City goalkeeper, got sent off yesterday playing for Fenerbahce against Galatasaray. So he'd already been booked, and then Galatasaray awarded a penalty, and he got booked again for delaying the take of the spot kick, so the referee sent him off. And then he came head to head with the referee, and both of them put their head to each other. And then he walks off the field and smashes the VAR monitor. So yeah, that was a chaos game, because then you look at after the game, and someone sent to me Galatasaray from the official club tweet, on the official club account tweet, just before the end of the first half, 1-0, and referees are evil and all this business. It's just unbelievable what goes on in Europe at some of the times. It was
pretty unprofessional from the social media team, I think would be safe to say.
Yeah, and then on to another keeper in Spain. Do you want to talk about the Spanish lad?
League Two. There's amazing footage. If you haven't seen it, you have to check it out, because you don't often see a player connect with another player quite as Mr. Andrada did for Zaragoza. It was weird because he was involved in an altercation with some other players, and then suddenly he broke away from them and has just absolutely smashed this other player in the face. And they're going, what is going on? It was just something you just don't see in football very often, and it's obviously made all the headlines for the wrong reasons. And rightly so, but it was just extraordinary to see.
They'd already been sent off, and he just clattered the guy, kind of thing. He's obviously apologised and said out whatever like this, but he's looking at a very, very long ban. And that's got to be stamped out. I know you don't see it often at all, but
I like it. Oh, he apologised. Yeah, brilliant.
Caused an absolute melee, and a couple other players are sent off as well. Yeah, absolute carnage in the Spanish Division 2.
Reminds me of just something missed earlier that I wanted to talk on very quickly. Was in the Arsenal game was the Pope non-sending off. So he's obviously brought the attacker down. There's one defender behind him, and it was given as a yellow card. And I've seen obviously Dale Johnson saying, he wasn't sure if the attacker was going to get to the ball and all this sort of stuff, but it reminded me very much of the Bezo sending off for Villa against Newcastle, where there were defenders behind the keeper, But essentially, those attackers would have been one-on-one against the defender, with no goalkeeper there. Everyone was very happy to say Bizot was a sending off, but in this situation, the inconsistency I see that Pope shouldn't have been sent off. I think Pope should have been sent off in this situation. If you're saying that the Bizot one was a sending off, then this one has to be. There's enough similarities for me that between the two incidents. And again, it's not easy for referees, and I can understand Arteta's, frustrations afterwards with regard to it.
Yeah, this is consistency. That's all we're asking. I know humans make mistakes, but that was a red card from Pope.
So obviously this week we have a big week of European action. So on Tuesday evening we have quite an interesting matchup, to put mildly, between Paris Saint-Germain and Bayern Munich. First leg is in Paris. It should be a belter. This is obviously the pick of the semi-finals. If this had been the final, I don't think anyone would have complained. And it's going to be fascinating to see how it sort of pans out from a tactical perspective.
I really fancy PSG in this game and the tie. I don't think the Bayern Munich midfield or their defence is good enough to cope with the likes of Vitinha, Jan Neves, Zaire Emery. Fabian Ruiz came off the bench at the weekend as well. Nuno Mendes, he got injured in the Liverpool game. He came off the bench as well, so it looks like he's fit for tomorrow night as well. So they've got their full strength, PSG. I think their movement in midfield and their attacking strength, obviously, will be too good for Bayern Munich tomorrow night. We talked about it last week, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago. That Bayern Munich defence is just... Alphonso Davies is coming back from that serious injury, but Conrad Lima is not a left-back in any stretch of imagination if he plays. The 2 or 3, whoever they pick at centre-backs, have all got mistaken them in Meccano or Lee, whoever they pick, the 2 of them 3. The keeper's got massive question marks, Manuel Neuer. He's always likely to throw in a couple of... Well, he did in the last round, a couple of stinkers against Real Madrid. So even so, he was great in the Bernabeu, but terrible in the Allianz Stadium in Munich. So yeah, I just think PSG will have too much for them tomorrow night. There'll be goals in that game, but I do think that PSG will win tomorrow night and win the tie.
I think what's interesting is that Munich have had some success against Paris Saint-Germain recently. Obviously, they beat them in the group stages. I don't read too much into the win against them in the Club World. Obviously, they played each other in the Club World Championship last summer as well. But I wouldn't read too much into that. I thought we saw in that tournament some really strange results, performances. I think the one player I'm interested to see from a Paris Saint-Germain point of view is whether Doué is fit or not. I know he was on the bench as well, wasn't he, at the weekend, but he didn't come on. But
there's some attacking on both sides. The front four for Munich is sensational. Diaz, Elise, probably Musiala and Kane, obviously. And you've got the other 3 up front for PSG. It's going to be it should be a really good game of football. We're saying it here on a Monday morning kind of thing. But yeah, it's a game I'll definitely be watching kind of thing.
Well, I think what's interesting is both teams love to dominate possession and love to have the ball. And Munich under Company are quite interesting in that they press man for man and they play a very high line. And so what you saw was Real Madrid were able to take advantage of that high line. And I do wonder whether, you'd think Paris Saint-Germain can take advantage of that as well. I think what's interesting from both teams' perspective is, their number 9s effectively in Dembele and Kane both come quite deep as well to get involved in the build-up play. So there's a few things that are going to be quite interesting to see how they sort of pan out in this game. I do like Paris Saint-Germain as a general rule at the moment. I do think that, they're peaking at the right time. They had a lot of injuries earlier in the year. They obviously had that Club World Championship last summer as well, so they didn't have much of a pre-season. Even Tottenham managed to make them look ordinary in the summer. But they're beginning to get players back now, and I think they're looking pretty good.
The fully fit squad, I think. Well, all the players are available anyway, so yeah. Whether they're fully fit, but you know what I mean.
And then Wednesday night, this is another fascinating game because, Arsenal, there aren't many trickier European grounds to go to than Atletico Madrid. But Atletico Madrid, I think I saw they've lost 7 out of the last 9 games. Obviously, they're tanking it in terms of in La Liga because they want to focus on this competition, which will make it tricky for Arsenal. Arsenal have obviously had a tough game against Newcastle at the weekend. Madrid have had a chance to rest all their players. They're ready for this, and I'm intrigued to see how Arsenal get on here because Arsenal spanked Atletico Madrid at home in the group stages, I think 4-0. So, what changes between then and now? I think one thing I would say is Arsenal aren't playing nearly as well now as they were then.
Yeah, Simeone will have the ground fully in tune with his antics, running up and down the touchline. He'll have them controlling whatever they're doing. I'm just looking forward to watching Julian Alvarez play again. He's just a brilliant footballer. And if you get him out of Atletico Madrid, he is a top class striker. Yeah, I think Havertz will be if he's not fit and available. I think that's a big loss for Arsenal because Gyökeres, we talked about it till we're blue in the face. He can't hold the ball up, and if they need a get out ball because they'll be squeezed the life out of Arsenal, they can't just chuck it up because he's just not got the ability to hold it, or like Havertz can bring other players in. So it's a big game mentally for Arsenal as well. Can they deal with the pressure? They go into the game, not that particular game, but they go into a tie as big favourites to go through to make their second ever Champions League final. So the pressure is on Arsenal. As you said, Atletico Madrid have got nothing else to play for in the league. This is their full focus is on these 2 games. Obviously, it's a Wednesday, Tuesday as well, so they'll play their second team. They played their second team on the weekend as well. Well, they didn't play second, but the likes of Griezmann didn't play, Alvarez didn't start, Lookman, the ex-Atalanta and the Everton player, he didn't play either. So they're fully rested, Atletico Madrid, and it is a tough place to go to. Jan Oblak's back fit as well. He started in goal. So
I wonder how wet the ground will be this time, James. Sprinkle some extra water. See,
actually, if Strawloff starts, actually, or they play Griezmann and Alvarez, it'd be interesting what Simeone does, because obviously Griezmann and Alvarez are very different up against Gabriel and Saliba kind of thing. So if you play Strawloff, he's a big physical presence up front. I'd imagine they'll go Griezmann and Alvarez and bring him on, which they have done normally after 60, 65 minutes kind of thing. So yeah, it's good luck, Arsenal. I mean,
I think this first leg sounds obvious, but Atletico, they need a lead to take, I think, to the Emirates. And from Arsenal, how negative will Arteta be? As you say, without Havertz potentially. I do think top quality players who can hold the ball up are underrated as a general rule. When you see it. So it was interesting seeing Jimenez at close quarters actually for Fulham at the weekend. He is a proper big lump in terms of the chaos he causes, and there's plenty of others who do that as well, whether it be Haaland's of the world. But they're definitely going to miss him, and I guess one good thing for Arsenal is that Saka will be back, and I think they desperately need him. I think one thing I would say as well is I think they need Timber back as well, and it'd be interesting to see when he is back. Ben White's bang average, and what I think saw a few times at the weekend in that Newcastle game was Saliba got a little bit exposed at times, so he looked pretty average at times, and again he was lucky not to get booked, which would have had big consequences at the time. But I don't think he looks as good without Timber at right back.
Yeah, just having a look at it. Arsenal are favourites for the game as well. I mean, favourites to go to Atletico Madrid and win? No, thank you. Not the way Arsenal are playing at the moment.
Well, but you think back to their previous European games in terms of knockout stages. They haven't shown any. They've obviously been very lucky to, they were lucky to beat who they played, Sporting. It took that, and against obviously even like Leverkusen and stuff. I mean, they haven't gone away from home in those first leg European games and shown any real intent. They've been pretty rubbish in terms of the actual performances.
Goes back to my point. Who have they actually beaten this season?
But
anyway, two contrasting games, shall we say? Very contrasting games, how they'll be played anyway, so yeah.
And then, just quickly, so we obviously have a Europa League game on Thursday evening. Forest Villa should be a bit of an epic. Who knows how this will go? Forest coming into it with some confidence. Villa are clearly the better team. I'm intrigued to see how it goes. I'm intrigued to know if Forest will rest any players in terms of the league, given those results, West Ham and Tottenham. They're not safe in terms of the league. I assume they'll just go for it and take their chances. I mean, what else can you do? I'd be interested. It looks like Murillo will be out. Not sure about Cunha. I think he may have picked up a knock at the weekend. So that's to be seen. Hudson-Odoi is obviously out for the season. I do think for Villa it makes a massive difference whether Onana is fit or not. If Onana is fit, I think I quite fancy Villa. I mean, obviously, they played this exact fixture just a couple of weeks ago, and I thought Villa played pretty well, to be honest, for large parts of that game. Ended up in a draw. So, yeah, we will see. But it should be a fun watch.
Yeah, as a neutral, it's great watching two English teams go out at each other because you know so much about the teams, kind of thing. So you won't be watching Braga versus Freiburg in the other semi-final then? I mean, that's remarkable. That's a Europa League semi-final between Braga and Freiburg. I mean, it's quite remarkable. Yeah, it's just Forest obviously got two massive wins recently, haven't they? Well, they beat Porto. They were bang average against Porto, even 10-men Porto, who had like Thiago Silva and Jan Bednak as your defenders, kind of thing. So it's great to over the line. Morgan Gibbs-White has really stepped up recently. He's obviously scored again on Friday night. So yeah, I think they'll go full strength. They might change the keeper. Ortega seems to read Europa League keeper ahead of Sales, doesn't he? But they've got that extra day's rest. They don't play Chelsea until, we talked about it, didn't we, the Monday afternoon. So
okay, so the thing about the timings is, so Forest get an extra day before this game, and then Villa get an extra day on the other end.
Yeah.
So, it sort of balances itself out a little bit, all said and done. I guess one of the big differences is, the game in between. Villa have Tottenham. If Villa were to lose that game, it doesn't. I'm not going to say it doesn't matter, but it's not nearly as important to Villa potentially as the game that Forest have got.
Yeah, but yeah, it's a big good watch. And then you've obviously got the Europa League where Crystal Palace are playing Shakhtar Donetsk, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
I'd imagine that's in Poland, isn't it? They're playing in Poland somewhere, I think.
Yes, it will be. I think Poland is where they've been playing previously.
And then, yeah, I mean, Palace should go there. Well, they've been average. They lost, obviously. They went through against Fiorentina, but they got beaten by Fiorentina 2-1, didn't they?
I think Palace will just try and go there, keep it tight. I mean, it's an unbelievable opportunity for Palace to get into Europa League. So.
Yeah, and then the other one is Rayo Vallecano versus Chelsea, second 11, Strasbourg. Well, I wonder where Liam Rosenior might be this weekend. Do you reckon he'll be at Strasbourg, or do you reckon he'll be on the beach somewhere with his massive payoff that he's got from Chelsea?
Right, just quickly, I've touched on this before. What were Chelsea thinking giving him a 6-year deal? I know it has break clauses, so I think I heard a number of 4 million in terms of payoff, right? But how can you put yourself in a situation where you're having to pay Rosenior even 4 million if it didn't work out? I despair, but that's football. But yeah, so really interesting game of European action this week. And I guess we will talk more about it on Friday. So we'll talk about what's happened and hopefully Villa will have got a positive result against Forest. No nonsense, please.
Nerves will be setting in, won't they? 5 to 8 on Thursday evening, Luke. Big chance to get a Europa League final. Nice little trip to Istanbul. Just a little hop across the water over there. 4-hour flight from London.
It might be a time to go for some beers, James.
Absolutely, never turn down a beer or not. One other thing I just wanted to bring up was the talking of betting, things like this, is the shirt sponsorship ends, doesn't it, this year? So next year, start of next season, 26-27 season, you're not allowed to have front shirt sponsors. You're still allowed to have it on your sleeve and on advertising boards. But 11 Premier League clubs have it out of 20 at the moment, the current 20. So there'll be a lot of teams scrambling around trying to fill 10-15 million pound void of these.
I simply don't think they will be able to. So, I mean, the problem is these betting companies, and a lot of them weren't even sort of British based. A lot of it was sort of Asian based, and
can't even log into can't even see the website from here.
Exactly, not accessible from the UK, but they were worth a lot of money. I know Villa, for example, losing Batano as a front shirt sponsor. Now, if they make the Champions League, they should be able to find a decent front of shirt sponsor. But a team who hasn't got a front of shirt sponsor, I mean, obviously not from a gambling company, but is Chelsea, and they haven't had one in the Premier League.
They've got one now. They've got an AI one now at the moment. They have got one.
Well, that's just it's just a short term one. But there are lots of those sort of mid to lower Premier League tables teams. They're the ones who are going to struggle with the shirt sponsorship deals. And again, all that ends up happening is, with the way the financial fair play or PSR is going to come in works, is these teams' revenue is going to go down, and the gap between them and the big teams is only going to get bigger. It just means they're going to have less money they can spend.
Yeah, it's just an interesting one to keep an eye on, considering over half of the teams have got it. So yeah, just look at like the Bournemouth and things like that. Just
one thing I meant to say, obviously, Man City and Arsenal, it's literally even money the pair for the title now. Couldn't be poised any better. What more can you ask for, James? 4 games to go, even money the pair. So, but yeah, so let's hope we have a good week of football, and we'll catch up on Friday.
Yeah, good week of football, and a good couple of, if you're interested in horse racing, there's good horse racing as well this midweek from Ireland and Punchestown. So yeah, National Hunt, end of their season. So yeah, always good, and the weather looks good as well here in the UK. So yeah, it's happy days, and we'll move on. But yeah, enjoy the football this week, Luke, and we'll catch up with everyone on Friday. Cheers all.